Hello, welcome to the OSU Alumni Association's Travel Talk presentation, 2023 Travel Preview, the Gorilla Trek in Uganda, with Mayflower and our special guest, Sandy Doss. I am Kate Sanders, and I'm the Director of Alumni Programs and Alumni Group Travel. Some of you are viewing us today have traveled with us in the past, and some are new to this program, so welcome. Our travel program has been around for over 30 years, providing group tour options for our alumni and friends at the university. We offer both exclusive departures and trips with a mix of alumni from OSU and other partnering institutions, such as USC, University of Washington, UCLA, and others. Every year, we select between 30 to 40 trips from a variety of well-established, well-respected travel providers and promote them to our community. When a tour sells well, a professor or university leader or an alumni association representative joins the tour, providing educational content about the destination and the university. Not only is the bond with the university strengthened by sending this host, but they also assist with tour logistics and help ensure that you have a great time. In the next few weeks, we have 2 more great Travel Talk presentations for you to watch. On April 5th at 5:30 p.m., there'll be a talk on Alaska and the Inside Passage with distinguished Professor Alan Mix and fellow traveler and OSU graduate photographer Rod Chandler. On April 19th at 5:30, we'll do a talk on the majestic Mekong River cruise, and it'll be with Mayflower again, and we'll have Sandy with us for that one as well. If you would like to view any of these webcasts, please visit fororegonstate.org/travel talks. The recordings are linked at the bottom of that page. This program is also being recorded and will be posted online in the next few days. And you'll receive an email with the link to the recording as well. Today, we are here to talk with Sandy Doss, Business Development Manager for Mayflower and OSU Mom. And we have partnered with Mayflower actually on a few trips. Tulip Time, which is set to depart at the end of April. And we actually just booked 4 travelers on it over the weekend. So there's still a little room left if you're interested. French and Italian Rivieras is heading out in October. And then in February, we're going to do the Cambodia and Vietnam on the majestic Mekong River. And then, of course, Uganda in August in 2023. And in 2024, we'll be deciding that this fall, and I'm sure there'll be some more on the list. All these tours are on our calendar, and I'll post that link at the chat, and which is at the bottom of your screen in just a few minutes. So, but without further ado, please welcome Sandy Doss, Business Development Manager for Mayflower and OSU Mom. Hi, Sandy.
Well, hello, everybody. Happy hump day over there.
Yes, happy Wednesday.
Well, it's thrilling to meet everyone. And I need you to know I am an honorary Beaver because I do have a daughter who has not only done her undergraduate here at OSU, but she is also doing her graduate work right now there at OSU. So I have some connections with you all, and
Yes.
this is personal and professional, but it's very exciting, and particularly today, I can't wait, Kate, to kind of share a little bit, because this will be even new for Kate to see some of the details of this trip. And I'm gonna put a little disclaimer, you guys, because you might get the sciencey Sandy that might geek out a little bit, because I love travel like this. This is my all-time favorite. So bear with me, and know that ultimately we celebrate the natural world. And so that's what this trip is really about. And,
yes.
So
well, we're excited for the science Sandy as well as the descriptive Sandy. So bring it on.
I am going to do, Kate, I'm going to take the screen. Is that good with you?
Yes.
Okay, let's see, you guys. Let's see if you can see it.
It's looking good.
All right, perfect. Well, as Kate has shared, you all, I am in Portland, Oregon. She didn't share this part, but I'm in Portland here in Oregon. And I have worked with Kate for a number of years. Gosh, it's probably been 4 or 5 years now. And each of the tours that we've come together with, I gotta say, you all, we dream in the background and we lose ourselves in the possibilities and how would this couple with maybe what you've done before or what you're going to do next, and what's the story of this tour in relation to the bigger experiences that you might have with the alumni travel program. And so when we began to develop this experience, you guys, it was absolutely beyond exciting to us, because one of the things that I think maybe you've seen in some of the literature is this is the very first time that OSU Alumni Group Travel has offered and is offering a gorilla trekking experience in Uganda. So this makes it even really exciting, because this is less people experience gorillas than go to Antarctica, you guys. So this is really one of those unique, extraordinary moments. And I want to talk a little bit about, like, first, for anybody that's sort of taking notes or just, interested here, who is an ideal traveler for this program? I think it's important to sort of play with this for a second, because if you have a love of the natural world, this is an absolutely outstanding program for many reasons, and I'll try to set that stage for us and why. If you are an enthusiast of cultural exploration, that you want to understand the cultures, and maybe you've even been to Africa before, maybe you've been to East Africa and Kenya or Tanzania, maybe you've been to South Africa. This is a very different experience, but yet it pulls upon some of those dynamics that you might have had culturally. As well, if you are a conservationist, somebody who really wants to make a difference in the world, but also wants to see the difference that's being made in the world, this is going to be a trip that would speak to that very deeply. I'm also going to add in adventure. This is an adventurous trip. This is adventurous on many levels, and I'll tell you why. But it's adventurous in experience as much as, even in some physicality, but it has that quality to it. And then finally, I'm going to add this in. If you're a photographer, and I don't care if you use your iPhone as photography, but you love to get a great image, this is going to be that trip. Like, these are the images that are shared at the dinner party where you just have stopped everybody dead in their track. And so I bring that to the table as well, because I think you can channel your inner National Geographic. So let's kind of get into things, and let me kind of give us a sense of the lay of the land, if it may. I will say, I think it's important to sort of get, where are we, and Uganda is bordered. It is an Eastern African nation. It is bordered by Kenya and Tanzania, which is, of course, very popular in travel. It is the principal and the source of the Nile River. For those that are geographers or have a love affair with geography, this brings that to the table. This is a place of immense diversity, you guys. I mean, you're talking about 120 mammal species, 346 butterfly species, 202 tree species, 610 fern species. And I don't know how many ferns we have here in Oregon, but I'm thinking that's a lot. And 319 species of frogs, just to name a few. But this is a lush green vegetative location. You're rather coming into the warm tropical climates. So you are in true African rainforest, but then you also have other biomes, other ecology, other ecological systems, such as, prairies and wetlands. And so there's a lot to be seen. And I think what's exciting about Uganda is it is so different. Like, we don't know much about it, I think, as American travelers, if it may. And I do see some folks putting chats, so I'll rely on you, Kate, for anything that you want to poke at me while we're doing our talk here.
That was me. I added in that Oregon has 40 species of ferns.
Well, thank you so very much. So that then makes that number very impressive, doesn't it, you guys? One of the things that I think is exciting as well is Uganda is home to 10 national parks, for which in our itinerary, in this experience, you guys, there'll be 4 of them in our itinerary. So you're going to really be covering some ground here in Uganda itself. And what does that compare to the United States? We'll have to talk about this, but I'm trying to remember how many actual national, does anybody know how many national parks do we have in the United States? It gets tricky because you also get into private reserves or, that kind of thing. But one of the things that I think is a theme, and I want to just set the stage for this because this is an unusual trip in that I'm going to call it a give and take trip. I think often when we travel, we go into a location, we get consumed with what we're seeing, we take pictures, we grab memories, we package it all up and we put it all in our luggage and we buy souvenirs and we come home, right? And I'm going to call that the take side of it. We go in and we enjoy something and we bring it home. In this case, your travels in Uganda is really, I'm going to even borderline call it philanthropic. You are giving as much as you're taking. And I'm going to try to highlight that as we walk through a little bit on where is this give and take? Why is it a give and take tour? But we are supporting local communities and conservation through every aspect of this trip. And so you're going to see examples where we're directly impacting the communities for which we are there visiting with. Or the wildlife we are there to view. And, I'm sorry, let me add one piece. The itinerary, this is the itinerary, and I believe after our talk, you will get a copy of the full itinerary if you don't already have it, which will highlight what we are doing in each of these locations. And for our purposes today, I'm going to try to just kind of sweep over and offer you kind of a flyover of the trip as much as possible. And so I'm not going to go activity by activity or day by day even per se. So let's start in Kampala because this is where we will be starting the experience in Uganda. And Kampala is the capital city. And like many capital cities, there was a catalyst for Kampala. And that was at the turn of the century. In 1901, there was a railway system, you guys, that was built from Mombasa, Kenya on the coast that came into Kampala in Uganda. And that really began we'll call it the, trade and the economic heartbeat of the country. It was that one train route that kind of started the development of Uganda into what it is today. And one of the things that I also love about this location is if you're a world traveler and maybe you have 10 or 15 travel experiences under your belt, I think we can all appreciate sometimes when you go and you push those boundaries, when you kind of go to the outer edges. And Uganda is a place where you have tourism that is developing. It's not per se on the world tourism map. It's not like going to Costa Rica, for instance, or even Kenya. It is developing in front of our eyes. And what that means from a travel perspective is you have never been so welcomed in an experience as you will be in this experience. There is a genuine collective excitement to have tourism in the country. And I always think that's really powerful. We are going to have one of our first experiences, actually, once we get started is, and this is almost the first example of a give and take. We're going to spend a day talking about the structures of Uganda. We're going to learn a little bit about the government structure, and we're going to have a guided tour of the city. We're going to explore the palaces. Catholicism is one of the key religions, so there's some beautiful cathedrals here. There's also an incredible university system there, but even more important, we're going to talk for a moment, we're going to get a glimpse into what is education in Uganda. And your travels are actually contributing to the well-being of the education system. And so this is that give part that I was kind of sharing with you, but we are going to visit with a local school. We're going to learn a little bit about the lesson format, the kinds of experiences of schooling that might be seen here in this part of the world. And so we'll have a local guided visit. And so socially speaking, I think I tell people, here's the thing. I say to people, we go to see the animals often when we do travels to Africa, but it's the people that win our hearts. And I think this will be right out of the gate, one of those experiences. Here's a little, image of Kampala itself in the city. We're going to go to Kabaka's palace, you guys, which was a Bungundan king. And so talk about like learning new cultural histories, right? But we're not going to spend much time there. So you're going to get a little bit of time in the city, and then we're going to come because we're going to go and explore this thing that I think most of you are here to do. And that's the wilds of Uganda. And more than 10% of the landmass of Uganda, you guys, is protected in national parks, as well as game reserves and national forests. In comparison, to give us an idea, the US is 12%. There you go, Kate. I actually have a stat here. It's 12% of the landmass of the North America, or the US, is 12% is protected, which I think is interesting. So we're not in Uganda that far behind. And quite honestly, it took a lot of great vision at a government level for them to protect this amount of landmass on behalf of the country itself. We're going to start in Kibale Forest National Park. And I've been laughing because in my head, I've been trying to think of like parks that I can compare the parks of Uganda to the parks that we're going to see in, well, the parks of Uganda that we're going to see as it relates to US parks. And I'm going to say this sort of has, we'll call it the Yosemite. It's the Yosemite of Uganda. It is most known, you guys, the Kibale Forest, for its home of chimpanzees. And in fact, there are 1,500 plus chimps that are known to individuals that are known to live in this particular forest system. And for anybody that's come out of the natural resources or the forestry schools at OSU, I do want to mention that this is a corridor forest and was strategically safeguarded as a corridor of 110 miles to allow these animals, such as the chimps, to have a migrational path. And we see that a lot in South and Central America, but I thought this was really interesting, that they created this forest so that they could connect it to their bigger national parks. And what are we going to see in a forest like this? Why? Okay, so that's beautiful. What is it we're looking for? Well, you all might be familiar with the term old world monkeys versus new world monkeys. New world monkeys being in Latin America, old world monkeys being found in Africa. And in Kibale, you guys, it isn't just the chimps, actually. I think we see chimps and gorillas, and that's what we think we're doing. But the reality is this is quite diverse. And because it's quite diverse, there are 13 species of primates just in this one park that we're going to have access to during our travels. So this is that photographer part that I was telling you about. You're going to be capturing every single one of them. So here we have an old world monkey, and I'm going to walk through a few of these because I want you to see the dynamics of each species. This is the red colobus. This is on the endangered species list. So we are talking about populations that are very small, and it's very important for their protection. And so we're going to have a chance to see this particular species. They also have the largest population of the primates of the 13 different types here in Kibale. So you will see probably a lot of the red colobus monkeys. We're then going to do the Lahost monkeys. And these are found in montane tropical rainforest. And I'm going to be honest, like, if there was a passport that allowed us to do a stamp for every monkey in the world we ever saw, or maybe, every environment we ever experienced, I always, as a little girl, had this dream about the world's rainforest, where they were located, what made them unique, how was an African rainforest different from, a Central American rainforest or an Amazonian rainforest. And so there's an allure here because you do have this opportunity to see various rainforests. And in this case, in this particular park, it's a montane rainforest. So it's high elevation rainforest. And it's combined with both a primary and secondary forest system. And these guys are quite large, these monkeys, although not the largest. But what their function is in this particular forest, one of the functions is that they disperse the seeds. So they are a great contribution to the health of that particular environment. And they are listed, you guys, as vulnerable on the ICUN list. And I bring this up because I think, honestly, every one of these species are going to be endangered or threatened or vulnerable. So you're seeing some of the rarest species on Earth in the wild. is how I would define that. As we continue through this, and we're still exploring on our walks, we may run into the red-tailed monkey. And I know I've, kidded with Kate over the years around this, but you're in the wild. So it is important for me to just state that, I can't guarantee you're going to see everything because we are in a wild environment. This is not a zoo. However, your chances are all very strong. So, and I'll talk to you about what species are even super strong. But this is considered in Kabale one of the richest ecological systems in Africa, which is why we're seeing this level of diversity, particularly in the primates. And this is the red-tailed monkey. It's also known as the spot-tailed monkey, for those of you that are really excited about species. And they're unique in that their cheeks, I don't know if you can see this little guy's cheeks, they spend the day collecting food, and they use those cheeks as pouches. So they're their own version of a purse there. And so they store that food for, a meal later on. And so sometimes you'll see them super puffed up.
Yeah, one thing, Sandy, I'll add to that is during the treks, the guides, of course, are going to be helping point out and see, and so you see these different species along the way when they find something. But if you've gone to different places, our eyes here in the US are not used to spotting monkeys in trees. But once you're down there and you see a few, you start recognizing more the shapes and understanding where you might find them. So it gets easier along the way to spot them on your own. So like my first time in Costa Rica, I was not finding a lot of things, but then, after being down even for a day, once you see one sloth, you're like, oh, there's another, and there's another, and there's another, and there's another. So you do get more used to spotting things as you go along.
Boy, is that the truth. And what's even interesting is I always say, I marvel sometimes, you guys, when you'll hear kids say, oh, I hate science. And I'm like, how can anybody hate science? And in natural history sciences, right, you begin to learn the interconnection of all these different things. So you learned that this monkey lives on this type of tree, or this is their favorite food. So you begin to look for what they're connected to. And it is crazy how quickly, as you said, you figure out once you see a sloth, then you know exactly what you're looking for the rest of your trip. And, and then some animals are just robust and they're everywhere and you're going to see them, even they're going to be running, under your feet sometimes. This would be sort of one of those examples, you guys. This is the vervet monkey. And this reminds me of the capuchins, as we were talking about Costa Rica, because they're sort of similar, I think. They're rambunctious. They live in male-dominated hierarchical colonies. So the females that are born into the colony never leave the colony, but the males, of course, have to be bumped out at some point to go and, I guess, man their own colony or new village. And so we'll definitely be seeing these guys. They're quite cute and acrobatic. Another species, and for those of you, I don't know who all is on our call right now, but if any of you were on the Madagascar trip, this sort of feels to me very similar to something you might have seen with the lemurs. I had a running joke for Madagascar years ago where I said, you've seen one lemur, you've seen them all, which is not true, like so not true. And I think the same would apply here with monkeys. Each species serves a different function in that environment, and they're so unique in their behaviors and their family structures. And so our guides, Kate mentioned this, the guides are outstanding. These are people, you guys, who are born and raised in these areas for which you are visiting, and their intuitive knowledge is endless, and their pride for this, we'll say their backyards is, it stops you dead in your tracks, right? They're just so much excitement for, it's almost like having you over for dinner. They're hosting you in this very special place that they have a great love affair with. And so this would be another example of maybe what we might expect. This is, as I should have mentioned, this is the black and white colobus. There's actually 5 different species of this monkey, and there's 8 subspecies of this monkey. So there's an interesting story here. But these guys are beautiful. And of course, then this also reminds me, I don't know, this sort of reminds me of a holler monkey. Obviously it's not, but the gray-cheeked mangabe, I think it's how you pronounce it, mangabe. And there are 13 species of this particular monkey found here. And something that is interesting about this species, and I'm going to talk about this word now you're going to start to hear, is the concept of habituation. And, you know, I will say wilderness travel has come a long way in the last 10 years, if not last 20 years, when it comes to the sustainable and important processes of how do we engage in natural environments and wildlife without disturbing the wildlife and causing a change in behavior or affecting, you know, their well-being. Ultimately, we don't want to exploit any particular species. And so there's a systematic way that this is handled, and they spend years habituating particular species. And this is really common in Africa. And in fact, if you've been to Africa, you've already been a part of this, because if you've seen the elephants in Amboseli, or you've come on a game drive and you've had the lions walk by your vehicle, that is a form of habituation. The animals no longer see you as something separate from the environment. You're part of that environment. So they kind of carry on with their everyday. This is one population where they're doing that right now. So this particular population of monkeys, they are sort of working on a long range effort to create, some connection between human and wildlife experiences. In addition, you guys, to the monkeys, we're going to see some baboons. And this is the olive baboon. And this is the largest species of monkeys. It is, the male is 2 feet 4 inches tall and 52 pounds. So these guys are, well, they're real. And if you've been to India, you're probably used to baboons a little bit, but you would probably expect to see them along the roads as you're coming into the national parks. So I am quite confident you're going to see your fair share of olive baboons. And maybe at this moment you're thinking, wow, there's a lot of primates going on here in this talk. So I'm going to shift gears on us for a second, and I'm going to go to the smaller species. And remember, I'm a geeky person in this arena, so y'all give me, you know, a grain of salt on this one. But, you know, it is in all species that I think we're inspired, particularly when we go into rainforested or diverse ecosystems. And this is for a birder, and especially for like maybe, and I'm going to even use the word birder in quotes because I'm an enthusiast. I am not a life, what is it called? A life lister in birding. But there are folks that really spend their lives searching out the opportunity to witness or observe a variety of birds around the world. This is actually the black bee eater. You guys, there's 27 species of bee eaters in the world, mostly in Africa and Asia. A few in Europe, Australia, and New Guinea. But we don't have this. We don't have this species at all here in North America. And that makes that very special for us. They're gregarious, they're extraordinarily colorful. And of course, what do they feed on? Bees, wasps, flying insects. We're going to also not only see what's above us in the air, but we're also going to pay attention to the birds on the ground. And these green pita birds, there's just 2 species of this bird in Africa, in the whole of Africa. And these are predominantly found along the equatorial line throughout Africa. So that's like Gabon and Republic of Congo, Cameroon, for instance. And they spend time in that dense lowland forest, sort of skulking around in pairs and leaf litter. So if you've been to the tropics and you've seen a mannequin, that's sort of what these guys remind me of, because they're just so brilliantly colorful. And again, this is where I'm thinking the camera folks are going to love the opportunity to capture this. Now, maybe you joined our call today, guys, because it's the big guys that you're looking for. It is the opportunity to see chimpanzees in the wild. It is the opportunity to see gorillas in the wild. And maybe that's been your, you know, we'll say driving force in exploring this idea. these chimps, this is quite an experience, you guys. Now, I know I mentioned that there's 1,500, approximately 1,500 individuals in Kibale Forest in the Kibale National Park. And there is a science to this. And often as tourists, we don't always know how this whole thing works. So I don't know how many of you have ever been on a whale watching tour, but I'm going to use this as kind of a comparison. In the world of sophisticated whale watching, I'm going to tell you guys that there are spotters that go out ahead of you before they bring that ship out, that boat out to see those whales, that have already identified that pod, right? They know where they are. They have their geographic, positioning. And so when you go on your whale watching, you have much more of a successful outcome, right? You do get to see that wildlife. And in Uganda, it's kind of the same thing. There is a series of park rangers that their role is to carry out the chimp habituation process. And I think I talked to you guys a little bit about this, but this is really to introduce the idea of human presence without interfering with their daily lives, if that makes sense. And so the park rangers go out and they trek, and they of course form relationships with these families, you guys. But they also give us a heads up as to where the families are. So this is that part where I said, while we are in the wild, there is a certain high level of observation that you are likely to have, because they will identify your groups based on, having already determined where they might be in that forest. Now, I'm also going to say something about that forest, because I know for some people, this trip might be, it is definitely adventuresome. It does require some physical capabilities. You do want to be able to walk over uneven terrain. You want to be able to walk for several miles. You do have walking sticks, which I highly recommend, and that makes a big difference. But I will say there is a huge success rate of being able to see these animals really in a wide spectrum of physical abilities. And what do I mean by that? Well, when the park rangers work with you and you are put together with a park ranger, there's only 6 of you that will be in one group that will go out to see one family, okay, of chimps. So let's see, Kate, tell me if I'm making sense of this. But for every chimp family, you're in small groups of 6, and you are the only group that will visit that family that day. And the groups are chosen by the physical dynamics of it. So for instance, maybe there's a chimp family that's a little farther out. It requires a bigger hike. Well, if you're more physically able and active and you want to have that longer walk through the forest, because you're going to see a lot of different things, then you're going to probably join that park ranger. But maybe you don't want to walk that far and you want a shorter route. Well, there'll be options that you can have that shorter walk with the other park ranger who they know of family that's nearby.
Yeah, and in most of all of the travelers that do this are successful on the treks. So that you're able to do the hikes and to do the walks. And you could be walking for a few hours, correct, Sandy?
Yeah, you could be, or you could be walking for 30 minutes. So it's kind of crazy because it's quite a wide spectrum here. And again, we're working with wild populations, but years back, you guys, you had a 20% chance of seeing the chimps here in Kibale. And today it's a 99% chance. These are regulated experiences through the national parks and through the park rangers. So I need you to know this is a permitted scenario. We're not just willy-nilly throwing a bunch of people out. There's permits. They only issue so many per day. So it's a very limited model so that we can ensure the sustainability of the population and their health overall.
And Sandy will go into this a little bit more too, but it's important to note that what she said is one visit per day per gorilla family is important. And also that part of mentioning the habituation is part of that is also for safety for travelers and safety for the animals. So the money that is being spent on these gorilla permits is to actually help protect them in their
Oh, wait,
environment.
you guys wait till I tell you this, because
Yes.
it's incredible, actually.
Yeah, so that part, keep that in the back of your mind. So that
Yeah,
that
put
is
that
one
one
of
out
the
there, because
reasons.
I'll come back. I will swing back around to that. And
Yeah,
you know, one of the
important
things that I
reasons why
wanted to
we're
say
doing it.
is I don't know about you guys, but I think when I first started to learn about the gorilla trekking myself, I had this image that, you know, you were macheting your way through, you know, really thick jungle, and it's not always that case, guys. I mean, you could be on a trail that looks very similar to this, you know, or you may walk off into the bush. So it can kind of go either way. But it's good to know that up front. You know, we are working with an endangered species, and obviously our sweet Jane Goodall really brought to the world's attention, you know, chimpanzees, and have captivated us for decades, right? We are captivated by these species. And part of the reason I think we are, you guys, is we share 90% of the same DNA as chimps, 90%, which I find so interesting. And in all of Uganda itself, there is a population that hovers just about right under 5,000. I think the last count was 4,950 chimps that are literally found throughout the entire country. The park that we are here with Kabali is 1,500 chimps. So we're in the most dense area of the chimp populations. Now, I'm going to kind of pivot for a second, because here we are, we're in this forest system, and, you know, we're seeing montane forests and dry forests, but we're also going to see other environments. And one of those is the Bogoti wetlands. And this is sort of found on the edges of the Kabali National Park, but it's a different experience because you're in a wetland environment. And sometimes with the chimps or other species, they might be hidden in a tree or high up, or, you know, in denser vegetation. In the swamp, we actually have great viewing. Birding is outstanding here. So all my birders out there, and I'm going to say something again about birding. You don't need to know a thing about birding. Maybe you just like to watch our stellar jays in the backyard here in Oregon. They're so beautiful that that's all you need, right? Like it just, you come in going, oh, yeah, birds are interesting, and you will leave going, oh my God, you know, and you'll not even be taking notes on it. I don't know, but it is quite spectacular in that way. And one of the things I said about give and take, I'm going to bring it back to us, because this particular site, you guys, is a real testament to a community-based approach in tourism. Bogoti was created by the local community. The funds from your time here in this reserve go directly to that local community that is funding their healthcare, their education, their housing, you know, and so there is a direct correlation, I think, in many of these areas to the communities that actually are supporting the tourism of this region. And there is a bird that I'm going to bring up because I think it's worth mentioning. This guy. This is a blue Turaco. And so if I do have some hardcore folks in the group, you're going to be so excited to see this guy. But they're quite beautiful. They're crowns. And that is something that this particular reserve is very well known for. It's very hard to see these birds anywhere else. And so that'll be a highlight if we get that chance. It reminds me of going to the Amazon and seeing a harpy eagle. You know, it's in that same family, I think. Now, I think I said to you guys, okay, so compare to national parks in the US and national parks in Uganda. What is this park? We are going to be spending time here in Queen Elizabeth National Park. And I started to call this the Yellowstone of Uganda, but I'm gonna refrain from that. I'm gonna say maybe I need another park, Kate. Like, give me another big boy. What's another big boy that we all gravitate to?
Did we say Yosemite already?
I already said Yosemite. What about something in Utah, you guys.
Arches? This doesn't really look like Utah.
Okay. It's bigger than Arches. It would be, it is, one of those, like it is, we'll call it a gem. This is a gem of the Ugandan National Park System.
And what about Arcadia? Arcadia.
Oh, okay, thank you. Yeah.
Yes.
Let's go there. That's good. I'll go with that. It's a pride and joy, you guys. And what's beautiful about this is you are working with an abundant wildlife here, but this is the part that I think people don't realize actually in Eastern Africa. In Uganda, you are having a safari experience at the same exact level of diversity and exploration as you do when you are traveling to South Africa, or when you are traveling, to Kenya or to the Serengeti in Tanzania. The only difference is, and this is a big one, is that you are not inundated with the crowds. You are not 15 safari vehicles around one family of lions. This is a lot more intimate in your safari drives. And that for me is very appealing. That's sort of that emerging destination piece that I was speaking to you about. But you have these great plains, and we can expect to see African elephants, buffalo, the Ugandan kob, hippopotamuses. Oh gosh, we're going to talk about that. Topies, water bucks, warthogs, a giant forest hog. I actually don't know, you guys, what a giant forest hog is, but anyways, I'll have to look it up. Nile crocodiles, leopards are found here. So we're talking all the big five, spotted hyena, and as well the chimps and the lions. So this is where, if I could remember the song from The Lion King, I'd probably sing a note or two, but I don't. Did I say that I have a graduate student now? I'm sorry, I haven't watched The Lion King in years, but let's just all channel whatever that music would have been. And so one of the other things that I find fascinating about Uganda is the geography itself. We're all very familiar with Mount Kilimanjaro and Mount Kenya, for instance. These are some of the most known mountains of Africa. But Uganda, which is also, by the way, referred to as the Pearl of Africa, we find the Rwenzori Mountains, Rwenzori Mountains. I never say this right. And these were formed 3 million years ago. They stretch to the heights of about 51,000 meters. And they are the highest mountains in Africa. And so this kind of gives us this backdrop. You think you're going to see just the plains or just that forest that we spoke of, but then we have these massive mountain systems. So there's stories to be told and discussions to be had here, the unique geology, for instance, of Uganda. We're going to experience game drives. And I haven't mentioned this yet, but you guys, this is an intimate trip. And I really do want to emphasize this because we have to cap this trip at a total of just 20 people. 20, that is it, guys. This isn't exclusively you all, just OSU. And so this is a small group experience. So this is not going to be one that, to be quite honest, you'll have a lot of time to decide upon, because I think from what I've gathered from you, Kate, this one has been a great interest, and it is its first time to be offered. So I do want to put that out there, you all, just to be aware of it. But amongst those 20 folks, right, we're still in smaller groups yet. Our days are spent in these smaller vehicles. So you get to move around with different groups of people, or how you'd like to do this, where you'd experience more intimate experiences of 4 to 6 people, for instance, as you're going through your game drives. And we picked the best time of year. You are traveling in August, and we were intentional about this. We wanted you to have dry season, absolute dry season, no rains. The temperatures, you guys, is the highs are 78, rarely falls below 74, and rarely exceeds 82 even. And then the lows around 62 in the evenings, and rarely falls below 60. So it's light jacket, but nothing too cold, nothing too hot. And I don't know, that's my kind of climate. I'm just gonna say it.
It sounds pretty perfect, actually.
That's my kind of thing.
Yeah, me too.
Elephants. There are here's a question. I know I won't be able to see all your answers, but I'm going to throw it at you all, and then I want you to consider, what country in Africa has the highest population of elephants? Does anybody know? I'm looking to see if any chats jump in here. And feel free to throw it in the chat. Highest population of elephants. And it's going to surprise you. I don't know. It looks like somebody.
We got one answer. Someone said Uganda.
Okay.
There's another. I Googled it, so I cheated.
Okay, you can't Google it. That's cheating. Okay, so it's gonna actually, it surprised me. Botswana. Like, I would have thought one of the bigger countries, Kenya or South. I don't know. I was surprised to hear that Botswana is the densest population of elephants is found there. And Southern Africa remains the stronghold of a total of 293,000 elephants. So 70% of the population of elephants of Africa are found in Southern Africa. However, here in Uganda, we have 3,000 elephants that are found in this national park. So might sound like a little bit of a less number, but you're talking about a smaller area. So it is quite dense in population with the elephants. So I guarantee you're going to have some experiences here. With buffalo, we're talking about 1,000 buffalo found in Uganda in a population of estimated 1,000. This is the Ugandan cob. I always find these guys, all the, antelopes are always fascinating to me. And I'll be honest, I forget what they all are because there's so many different ones in all of my travels in Africa. But the cob is interesting. It's similar to an impala for those of you who have done other parts of Africa, but they're not related at all. The Ugandan cob is generally kind of a reddish brown, as we see here. It's a subspecies, and it's only found in Central Africa, West Africa. The cob family itself is West Africa, Central Africa, and East Africa. But quite fascinating. And we'll see herds of various species of antelopes. This is another version. There's thought to be 300,000 individuals of this particular species in the world. This is called a topi, and it is also an antelope. And it's larger. It's one of the larger species, and it's a grass feeder, which I think is very common here. So it's a very judicious eater, but they have unique markings. And so we're going to definitely get to see these populations. We're going to get to see lions, which, I'm going to have to stop and say, you see lions, like lions, tigers, I don't know. This is a lot, but with the lions, these particular families of lions have gotten accustomed to tree climbing. So unlike what you might have seen in other parts of the world, you're more likely to see the lions in the trees here, which I think is really an interesting thing. Why is that? And your guides are going to really uncover this for you. Why is that? Why do we see these lions tree climbing? And then after mountain gorillas, you guys, lions are the second most sought after species in Uganda. So from a viewing perspective and an opportunity to observe animals in the wild, the lions are pretty important. And here's an interesting thing I found by the World Wildlife Conservation Service. They estimated that each lion in Queen Elizabeth National Park, you guys, generates $13,500 per year for the Ugandan economy, coming from the revenue of tourism. And this is a bit dated, so I bet it's, even better. And I'm also going to eliminate COVID. So let's just take the pandemic out of this and say, in the regular world, I call it in the before time. This would be what we would expect. We're going to see water bucks, another large sub-Saharan African species. And so there'll be something exciting there. Again, cameras are out. We're also going to go to Lake Kotwe. And this is known throughout Uganda and Eastern Africa region. It's a substantial salt production is done here. This is a salt, what do you call this? A salt lake? Is that how you say that? I forget. But it is a former explosion crater from an active volcanic area northeast of Lake Edward and southeast of Lake George. So this was a crater that then became a salt. lake. And what is interesting is we're going to be staying along. Some of our views of this is going to be from the hotel, so I'm going to talk about that as well. We're going to have morning game drives, afternoon game drives. And so, of course, those of you that have done game drives before, you'll know this, but there's very different species you see in the early morning hours versus in the afternoon hours. And so there's a lot of diversity, and you can't get enough of it. I'll be honest, you can't get enough. And one of the things that I think is also fun is the game drives aren't always in a vehicle. I think some of my most favorite game drives I've ever had in parts of Africa have been while we were on a boat. Swimming elephants, the hippopotamuses, there's just a different, especially the waterfowl, there's just a different experience of what you might see when on water. And so that'll be an experience that we have. We'll get to jump on board. I didn't talk about hippos yet, really, but this would be another one of those questions. Where in Africa is the largest population of hippos? Does anybody know? It's also going to be a shocker, because I would also continue to say a bigger country. It's actually Zambia. Zambia has the largest population of 20 to 30,000 hippos. In Uganda, we have a whopping 5,000 individual hippos, statistically speaking, so estimated. So that is quite something. That's still a pretty dense population. So we will definitely experience, oops, I didn't mean to go that fast, experience that. And then, of course, the elephants. One of the things that I think I do want to really reiterate, and I know I'm sharing this, when we protect wildlife, we got to protect the environments for which they live in. And the Ugandan elephants populations have risen due to tourism and the national park system 600% since the 1980s. 600%, which that excites you, because it to me, I think there's purpose in travel, and I like to keep that connection very, very tight. Okay, now we're in Yellowstone, guys. I've been trying to find an example of Yellowstone. Here's our Yellowstone version gone Uganda. This is Bwindi Impenetrable Forest National Park. And this is, of course, you're in mountainous rainforest. You've got a variety of different forest systems that are happening here. Beautiful forest. It covers 32,000 hectares approximately, and it's the largest area in East Africa. Okay, now here I'm going to get geeky, of Afro-montane lowland forest. It's one of the Earth's 8 biogeographic realms. So this is, ecologically speaking, this is a major hotspot. And it is a UNESCO World Heritage Site. So if you do the stamps on your passport for UNESCO sites, this would be something that you could be achieving.
Real quick, Sandy, just for a time check, we're at 6:24. So if anybody does have questions while we're going through some of these last slides, feel free to type them in the Q&A, or I've been adding information in the chat box, and so you could do either one of them. But I'm reading and checking and typing things in, but feel free to add in some questions. We have questions about vaccines, and we have questions about trip dates, so I added those into chat.
Oh, perfect. Okay. Oh, thank you, by the way. Yeah, sure. I think this is we're here, guys. We're here at the 18 gorilla groups, family groups are found in this park approximately. And so we're going to have this opportunity to see those. And before I go to that, though, we need to know who are the populations that live harmoniously with the gorilla populations. So we are going to have a tour of the Batwa cultural community and trail. The Batwa people are the oldest surviving indigenous tribe in Africa. So there's great cultural interest here on our part to understand a little bit about their history. And they are considered conservation refugees as the governments scramble to cope with the pressures of population growth and climate change. So there's some complex stories here to explore. And so we'll do this, but then we are going to pivot to, well, let's talk about gorilla trekking, because that is the title of this trip, and it definitely is the highlight of the trip. You guys, the world boasts an estimate of about 1,065 or so mountain gorillas, 459 of those individuals are found here in the Bwindi impenetrable forest. And there are 20 habituated gorilla families available for our trekking. And I love this picture because it sort of shows you guys, because I don't know about you, but I get sometimes physically intimidated about making choices when it comes to hiking. And I do want you to pay attention to the ages we see here, the physicality we see here, because I will tell you, it is in the interest of your park guide, but also in the interest of this experience, that you have the opportunity to see a wild gorilla. So you will make it. You might, I will say you might have to do some added walks leading into this, but we got plenty of time. But, as we talked about earlier, these hikes can be as short as 30 minutes or sometimes as long as, 4 or 5 hours. These are very regulated. So there is regulations about the space between you and that animal. It is possible that the gorilla may walk up to you. So I'm going to say, when I say this is real, guys. And you are to move out of their way, but you are trained beforehand on behavior, gorilla behavior, and sort of how to navigate this. So this will be one of these most memorable experiences you've ever had. I mean, I don't know. I don't even know how you top this, to be honest. Like, there's a few trips that to me are just way over the top. You will spend time interacting with the gorilla family in the sense of being there to observe. You are asked to be 10 meters away. We do not touch the animals, and we don't do things that cause them to change their behavior. So you'll be schooled on some of that. But your photographs, you guys, I don't know, like they're going to be over the moon, really. But you'll have both, the silverbacks, you'll have the females, the juveniles, will also be a part of this experience. And as I said before, you're assigned to a certain level of fitness group. So, and you're verbal about this. You let the guides know, listen, I'm pretty active. I'd like to take that longer walk, or no, I want to take this shorter walk. So I really want to kind of speak to that and make sure that there's some flexibility here. And of course, the idea being that all of the trekkers complete the gorilla trek. And same as I talked about the chimps, they do have park rangers that have gone out in advance of your visit. There's only one group that will visit a family a day. And so they, of course, GPS and the modern day technologies, they're able to pinpoint the families very easily and therefore ready for you. And I can't imagine a wildlife encounter more intimate than maybe what you'll have with this. We also, polar bears sometimes. If you've done a polar bear trip, that would be in that vein. If you have gone to Antarctica, it feels like that to me with a trip like this. And as I said,
we do want to be honest about the time that you're with the gorillas. One of the reasons why Sandy has also gone through and talked a lot about what else that you'll see on the trip is because the gorilla trek is one day of the itinerary. So I think that's important to put that in perspective of the tour, that you'll also experience all these other wonderful things of Uganda, but the gorillas is one day in the itinerary.
It is one day, you're correct. And it's even a fixed time, that is regulated by the government. That is not something that we as tour operators are managing in that sense. This is done directly by the National Park System and coordinated by that system.
For the protection of the gorillas.
For the protection. And
yeah.
Again, we want to ensure that we are not disturbing ultimately, these wild families' experiences there in the wild. Now, one of the things I do want to bring to our attention back to that give and take is overall wildlife tourism, you guys, it's estimated about nearly 22 million jobs rely on wildlife-based tourism. And the World Wildlife Fund recently estimated that each gorilla brings in $1 million in revenue each year to Uganda, each gorilla. So that's quite a bit of economy that's being brought to that. And that there's even more stats. I'm always happy to send this to Kate, you know, especially for those of you that will be joining us. I'm going to break this down even more because I want you to know, well, where does that money go? What percentage? How does it get to the village? You know, so there's a lot of really interesting information about that. But, you know, for Uganda, this has been a critical support in protecting not just the gorillas, but the environments for which they live. And that would be true of the chimps as well. And it contributes 80% of the national, oh, here it is. Gorilla trekking has not only become a vital conservation fundraising tool, in Uganda, the tourism contributes to approximately 80% of the National Wildlife Authority's overall annual budget, financing the bulk of wildlife and habitat conservation across the country as a whole. So if that says anything about the impact piece, I just think that's really powerful. And again, you know, there's going to be this kind of duality between the cultural aspects of Uganda and then the wildlife aspects. I know I get super geeked out about the wildlife aspects. This is the science, Sandy, at play. I want to just give a quick glimpse of, well, okay, so that's great, Sandy. We're going to do all this great hiking and see all these great things.
Sandy, let's do this one a little bit faster since we are over time. But if you are able to hang on with us a little bit longer, you'll get to see these great.
I want to give you some imagery of where you're staying, like, and I think that experience is as powerful and exciting as the experience of what you're going to see. So when we come into Kampala, this is Latitude O, and this is a beautiful boutique hotel. It has kind of a global style to it. And so this will be where we're staying. Each of the hotels, you guys, we are in 2 nights per each hotel. So we're not jumping you around one night. They're also all 5-star TripAdvisor properties. So if this gives you any idea of, like, when I say 5-star, they are rated by consumers as a 5-star experience. So so that I think is important to mention. One of the first safari lodges we're going to stay at, this is near to Kabale, is Tarako Treetops, and this is in the lush rainforest here. And it boasts these breathtaking views. I tried to get a few of these in here so you could kind of see, but you have these beautiful raised platform, you know, tents. They're fully finished out. So when I use the word tent, use that word lightly. Anybody that's been on an African safari knows what I'm talking about. They're quite posh, but you'll see that they have these beautiful balconies. So the views are outstanding. We're going to be going to Kasenyi Safari Camp, and this is located in Queen Elizabeth National Park. It's an intimate tented camp. It offers, again, those rooms on raised wooden platforms with thatched canopies overhead. All the rooms have private verandas. Do you see the picture on the right bottom? That's that salt lake that I was speaking to. So you're sort of on the edge. You will see wildlife that comes into these camps routinely. So this will be very similar to maybe what you've experienced if you have done another African tour. This is the Mahogany Springs. This is our final lodging. And again, absolutely outstanding. They've built it in the traditional circular format, the rooms. So you have these, you know, private little cabins really. And again, private terraces, but very comfortable in each location. And I didn't talk about logistics, but I will say a few things. The dates of the trip, I think you mentioned this, Kate, is August 17th through the 26th of 2023. For our sense of security, for you to get a permit for both the chimps and the gorillas, we believe that if you are registered by May, I think we're probably in good shape.
End of May.
You know,
End of May.
End of May. And that's just being cautious on our part. I would hate for you to have interest, finally want to reserve your spot, and then there isn't any permits to be had. These are the pricing. So I do want to make a mention of this. This is unusual for us because not a lot of our trips have it this way, but there is a non-refundable deposit of $20.99 per person, and that reserves your spot on the trip. As I said, the capacity is 20 travelers. And the reason that we have that model here, you guys, is when the permits are purchased, they are purchased literally within a day of you reserving your spot on the trip. And that is, and these permits, of course, are contributing to the well-being of the park system there. And it does include your internal air and all of the chimp and gorilla permits. And we do have your group air coordinated out of Portland, but can also arrange it from other gateways. So that's something important. Because you did spend time with me and I went over, there is a savings of $100 per couple that I can lend back to everyone. And, hopefully that helps a little bit. But I do want to make mention of that because I know that you have given up your evening tonight to join us. And that sort of gives you a little bit of how's that, Kate? A little foundation.
No, this was great. We did have another question about if you're a solo traveler, is there a roommate possibility?
Yes.
And
there is. And in fact, let me say something about that. When you register for this trip, we have a program called a guaranteed share. And so if you sign up and you say, I want a guaranteed share, you're going to pay the twin rate, not the single supplement, the twin rate. And if we cannot find you a roommate, you get that single room without any additional cost.
But granted, this is a room where they receive the phone number of the person possibly to talk to ahead of time and make a final decision.
This is worked out. I mean, yes,
yes.
Well, Kate, you'll know everybody on the trip. So you're, able to make those partnerships.
Yes. So we do hope to have one. And we do actually have a lot of solo travelers that travel with us for a lot of different reasons. A lot of times they have a spouse that just doesn't want to go. So then they're solo travelers. So we do have them out there. Yeah.
Absolutely.
And so this is up, and it is kind of feels strange to be so far away in August of next year, but it is because of those permits and also because of the cost of your deposit. I do highly suggest you consider traveler's insurance because it is it's over a year out of a tour. And so having travel insurance will help protect that investment since it is a non-refundable deposit.
Absolutely.
So that's one thing. So if there's other questions, definitely put them in chat. We are over time a bit. So not going to dive in much. If you have questions as well, you can always email me. I put a I have to laugh. Somebody does want a roommate, but they have to make sure that they don't snore.
yeah, I thought that was really funny. That's what I was laughing at.
I love it. That's awesome. Then you can't room with me. So if you have more questions, you can always reach me at kate.sanders@osualum.com. I'm also available via text on my cell phone, and that phone number is 541-224-6416. So you can text me or call me on that cell phone number if you want to. If it's outside of normal business hours, I'm not going to answer it, but I will call you back. And before, so how about Sandy, you stop sharing your screen here for a minute? And
you betcha.
Yeah, and I just want to run through a couple quick things. So they said that's why they're leaving their spouse behind. It's because of the snoring. I love it. So just a couple things of just reminders. Yes, we are traveling during a global pandemic, and but things are so much better than they were even just a few months ago. And we are hoping it's just going to keep getting better and better and better. But before you head out, we always suggest that you are very familiar with the COVID-19 policies in the area that you're going. We give you information, but definitely just want to stress the fact that it's important for you to do research as well. And so these are some sites to check out. And then another thing is we had a newish website now. So I always like to show people a little bit where to find us because we're a little buried. But if you click on the Get Involved button at the top, and then it'll bring down a drop-down menu, and then you want to click the Alumni Travel button. And then there's a whole menu of options over here on the left. And there's some resources, and you'll see one down here called Travel Talks. That's where you'll see our upcoming travel talks and places to register. And then at the bottom, there's our recorded travel talks. So we do record these. This one is recorded. It'll be posted here. You will get an email about it as well of when it is live. Well, not live, but when it is posted online. And and lastly, I'm also on Facebook as well as our other travelers. I've led to really encourage conversation between travelers. So don't be afraid to start a conversation string on the Facebook page, ask a question, say hello to fellow travelers. That's what it's there for. So definitely use that as a resource.
And I'm on there too, so I can even
Yes.
answer questions if that comes up for you guys, in respect to today.
Yes, she is on there. So I'll just do another quick thing. I don't think any other questions popped in. So Sandy, you did it. We did great. So this is it. Yay. So that's Uganda and the gorillas and the lions and the monkeys and the chimps and the birds. So
Hippos.
And the hippos. So another great tour, another great experience. Thank you all very much for joining us tonight, and we hope you have a wonderful evening. Goodbye.
Yeah, thank you guys. Thanks, everybody.